დღეს ორგანიზაცია English Book-მა საქართველოში ჩატარა ერთ-ერთი შესანიშნავი ტრენინგი, ჩამოიყვანა ერთ-ერთი ყველაზე კარგი ტრენერი ფილიპ უორვიკი, რომელიც გვესაუბრა ტრადიციული მეთოდების შესახებ, მოყოლებული ტრადიციული მეთოდებიდან დამთავრებული თანამედროვე მეთოდებით, ასევე ვისაუბრეთ სხვადასხვა აქტივობებზე, რომლებსაც შემდეგ დავნერგავთ უკვე საკლასო მოთახებში.
Let me tell you a little bit about me. My name's Phil. And I've been involved in language teaching for a long time, since 1988. I got involved in teaching because I like traveling. My wife is Czech, and she's a teacher, and I have two small daughters. One is 9 and one is 10. I spend 9 months a year working in a small private language school in Brno, and I work as a teacher and a director of teaching. I think it's impossible to tell people how to teach unless you teach yourself. And in between, I travel for Pearson and I do some teacher training. So that's me. I always like to start a lesson with a warmer. Yeah, just get the students focused that it's English and get them tuned in. And to see how difficult, if I've never taught the students before, how difficult it's going to be. Whether I have smart, quick, fast students, or whether they're a little slow because it's Saturday morning and it could be a little tired. So we're going to do a little warm-up that I call the C and S game. It's a word association game. So if I say boy, you would say
Trouble.
Oh yes, that's a good one. Or you could say maybe compounds, cowboy, boyfriend, yeah? Maybe the opposite, boy, girl, yeah? I like trouble though. Maybe boy, son. Well actually, because it's called the C and S game, no words that start with C or S. So you couldn't say cowboy because it starts with a C. You couldn't say child because it starts with a C. No C, and you couldn't say son because it starts with an S. It's okay if you have an S in the word, you just can't start the word with an S. It's an English game, so you don't win anything. You only lose. You only lose. Yeah? And we'll have 3 teams, I think. Do you feel like being bananas or oranges? Oranges, okay. So you're the oranges. Bananas or pineapples?
Pineapples.
Pineapples. Okay, so you can be the pineapples.
Pineapples?
You're bananas. Okay, so
They are pineapples.
you're pineapples, you're bananas, you're oranges. Okay. So pineapples have 4 lives. Oranges have 3 lives. Bananas have 3 lives. It's a 5-second game. I will say a word. Your team have 5 seconds to say a word connected to my word. If I hear 3 words, I will choose the word, one of them, and repeat it. Okay? If one of those words begins with C or S, you lose a life. If nobody says anything in 5 seconds, you lose a life. If you say a word and I accept it, I will repeat it, and you will say a word connected to that word. So for example, if I say green and you say garden, you wouldn't say purple. Purple gardens? No. Yeah? So you'd associate with the last word, not the first word. Any questions? Let's start and warm you up. Okay? Who wants to start? Should we get the pineapples to start? I think that would be good. Pineapples, you ready? Table.
Chair.
No.
Oh.
So now we start with a level playing field. 3 and 3. Are you ready? Teacher.
Director.
Director.
A field.
Head.
Eyes.
Eyes. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hot.
Warm.
Warm sun. Okay. Are you ready? The beach.
Sunbase.
It's going to be a difficult morning. All right, are you ready? Tea. Hot. Warm.
Sun.
Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, let's concentrate. Let's concentrate. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Drive.
Driver.
Driver.
Fast.
Fast.
Car.
Car is good. We're just left with oranges and bananas now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We go like this. Bed.
Comfortable.
My goodness. My goodness. Are you ready? Technology. Modern. TV. Remote.
Man.
Remote man. Program.
New channel. Yes.
Okay, all right. Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Man.
Men.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Music.
Music.
Radio.
Radio.
Actor.
Actor.
Actress.
Actress.
Director.
Director.
Theater.
Theatre.
Play.
Play.
Sing.
Now we have some winners. Okay.
I don't like this.
Actually, if you play it with your students, make sure that you prep a few words like dog, cat, and those sorts of things. Okay, so the general theme today is methodology, methods and approaches. And I thought, I've got a couple of books. One of the books that I'm using is Language Leader, which is designed for adult students or for students who need some academic English as well as general English. Very briefly, with your partner, think of 3 different ways to finish that sentence. A successful lesson is when, and think of 3 different ways. So let's have some ideas. A successful lesson is when
Students are actively involved.
students are active.
Motivated. Most of the students get the target, so meet the targets.
Most of the students meet the targets and objectives. Yeah.
When all members are involved.
When you have good feedback. Yeah. Students are satisfied.
When all members are involved.
Where all members are involved in the process. We all know some classes we can go into and we're not feeling so great, but the class is so great, it gives us energy that we come out feeling really positive.
Exactly.
But there are also a few classes where perhaps
all vice versa.
absolutely, So I think it does depend, but I think you mentioned objectives. I think sometimes with a difficult class, just the fact that nobody killed each other is a bonus, I think a good teacher never stops learning, And I think, you know, even if we're using the same materials, we want to try it in a different way. Yeah? And again, you might try out an activity or a game like the one I just showed you, or you might try out a whole new approach just to see if it has some effect. I think it's important as teachers, we enjoy what we do. Yeah, that we get some satisfaction out of it. You all mentioned students, none of you mentioned teachers, but I think we teach because it's a vocation, because we love it, you know. Obviously, feedback from the students is important, but it depends who you're teaching and what you're teaching. And I think it might be worth having a little bit of time having a look at how language teaching developed. Now, if we go back hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, but certainly hundreds of years, what were the only two approaches to teaching language? Talk to your partner. What do you think the two traditional approaches were? I'll give you 30 seconds. Just have a little word. What do you think the two traditional ones were? So, what do we have?
Private classes.
Well, remember, if we're talking thousands of years ago,
Group with governors, I mean.
Most lessons are here too.
I think that mostly they were concentrating on reading and writing and
No, on oral activity. They were oral activity.
Mostly teacher-based, teacher-oriented lessons.
Okay.
White model.
there were two distinct types. Now, one type was a unilingual teaching environment. That's where everybody spoke the same mother tongue and they were learning a foreign language. And they would analyze the language and they would sort of do a lot of translation, a lot of grammar translation. So you'd find that even in an English class, it would be 50-50 at best how much English was spoken, and more of it would be almost in the mother tongue, with the teacher analysing, explaining, and they just remember all those different words and be able to give translations. On the other end of the scale, I mean, if we look back thousands of years to ancient Rome, where they had the Greek slaves who were tutors, and they said, right, teach the Greek classics, but maybe these Greek slaves couldn't speak Latin. Of course they couldn't translate. I mean, hundreds of years ago, the English gentlemen would go on the grand tour of France and Italy, and maybe they make a little bit of money by doing some tutoring, but they might not speak the mother tongue. So I think even as recently as a couple of years ago in Georgia, you had this connection with America. And so you had people that had very limited teaching qualifications, but you know, they were native speakers and they came over. And of course, automatically, you can't translate because they don't know the language. So suddenly, in this type of method, the language that was spoken more often was the target language. PPP.
Practice product.
practice production.
Yeah, and we all know that a PPP thing, you have the teachers here, start of the activity, and they stand at the front and they present. Today we'll do the present perfect. And then they'll say, right, here are the rules for the present perfect. And then there will be some controlled practice exercises in the book. Do exercise 1. And then exercise 2 is speak together and use it. So gradually as you got through, you do this PPP. Now, a guy called Jim Scrivener said, I like the ingredients, but do we always have to do 1, 2, 3?
No,
No.
not always.
But if you change PPP around, you still have PPP. So there's no good having 3 words that start with P. So he said, let's change the words. Authentic use would be the production. Yeah? Restricted use would be the practice. And clarification, just to show it didn't have to start at the beginning, would be the teacher bit. So you could have ARC or RAC or CRA or whatever. You could move them around a bit. But that's been around with us since the early 60s. And in America and some of the other countries, we had some holistic approaches. Some approaches that were more neurolingual, less about the language, less about how people learn. Do you know this one? The silent way? Silent way. Very popular in Malaysia still. Using... Well, what you're saying is, language learning shouldn't be stressful. You should be able to relax. You shouldn't be put on the spot, but the teacher needs to know if you understand or not. So I'm going to borrow this if I can. Now, in a silent way classroom, generally you'd use these little wooden blocks called cousinere blocks that are used for maths. And you'd use those to represent, they're all different colours and different sizes. I don't have some blocks, so I'm going to use this, and this, and maybe something else. Well, I use my bottle.
Yeah.
That'll do. It's very easy. As an example, I play tennis. I'm playing tennis. I watch TV.
I'm watching.
Okay.
Thank you. I play tennis. I play tennis.
I'm watching TV.
I have played tennis maybe. I'm watching TV.
I play tennis.
I play tennis.
I watch TV.
I watch
TV.
I'm watching TV.
I'm watching TV still.
I play tennis.
I have already played tennis.
Oh.
I have been playing
I've
it.
been playing.
I've been playing.
And then watching TV.
I've been watching TV.
Okay, then let's continue. I've been playing tennis. No.
I will.
I will have played. No. Wait, so perfect. Simple.
I used to
And
play.
this is continuous. Okay, so I have played tennis and what's the marker?
I watch TV.
Yeah.
I don't watch TV.
I haven't watched
TV.
Yeah,
We'll be
that's it.
together. I haven't watched TV.
I
Haven't been.
Haven't.
I haven't watched TV.
That's the teacher had told.
The important process is the fact that with these types of things, the teacher says, this is A, repeat, write it down, this is A. With the silent way, it says, well, the teacher will give them this. And the students will say, I don't know what that is. And then the students will be a little confused, but they will eventually finish the process themselves. So
Right, you give hints.
you give hints and they complete the process. Well, you've got community language learning, which is again something that's not used much nowadays. That's where you have a class plenary, and during the class plenary, everything is conducted in English. If the students don't feel comfortable, they can go out of the circle and they can ask the teacher in their mother tongue, in Georgian, how do I say this? And the teacher would explain and they'd sit down and they contribute again. TPR, I think you all know TPR.
Total technical response.
Yeah, and let me show you a little bit of how the silent way might be connected to total physical response. Can you move your chair round here? Can you move your chair round here? And can I have one more volunteer as well, please? We're going to pass an object around, okay? Write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down. Write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Draw a picture.
Write it down. Picture.
Call me.
Call me.
Write it down.
Draw a picture. Write it
Draw
down.
a picture. Read it.
Read it.
Call me. Are you thirsty? Write it down. Draw a picture. Read it.
Draw a picture.
You get the idea. You get the idea. Now, it can be a little bit of fun with functions. Of course, with lower level beginners, you might just use colours and different colour pieces of paper. And of course, it gets them to recycle the language quite quickly. So it's quite useful that way. Okay, let's move back.
დიდი მადლობა მინდა გადავუხანო ბატონ ფილიპ ვორვიქს, რომელმაც დღეს საშუალება მოგცა დავწრებოდით თამარა ჩვეულებრივ ტრეინინგ კორს. მან წარმოგვიდგინა სხვადასხვა პრაქტიკული სავარჯიშოები, რომელსაც ფიქრობ, რომ გამოვიყენებთ ჩვენ სასწავლო გარემოში. ასევე დიდი მადლობა მინდა გადავუხადო პირსენის გამომცემლობას და ინგლისური წიგნი საქართველოში.
Multiple intelligences, you all know different types of intelligences, Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. Let's do a multiple intelligence game for kinesthetic learners. Yeah? So, I need 4 people. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Come up here. Right. Come and touch the chairs. Touch the chairs. This is your chair. Yeah? Sit on the chair. No, one person sit on the chair.
You say.
Yeah? And you have a pen. You can sit on this chair. Sit on the chair. No. You're not touch this. Sit on the chair. You touch the chair. Okay? And this is your pen. Alright. Now, it's very simple. This is your space. This is your space. If you have the pen, you're going to be the one drawing. Okay? I'm going to tell you a story. Maybe I will say something like, Mary is crying, for example. Then I will say go. Go is the important word. When I say go, you run and you might draw what I've said. Yeah? Does it in your boxes? It doesn't matter how good the picture is, but you have to include. You couldn't just draw a girl. You have to include the information. The important thing is you then have to go, and your partner stands up, and you sit down, and you change the page. And whoever does that first gets a point for their team. Okay? So we'll try it. This is your space. This is your space. I'm being safe. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
John is sitting under a tree reading a book. Go!
Masterpiece. Oh, I'm sitting. Yeah.
Okay, they sat down just before you did. They get a point.
Okay.
Same picture. It's raining. Go. It's raining.
It's raining.
You seem too slow. You got point 2. Okay. All right, are you ready? John's girlfriend.
You need to stand here.
Yeah, you got to touch the chair. Touch the chair. John's girlfriend is short and fat with a big nose and long hair, and she's eating an ice cream. Go!
Don't forget about
wait.
This tree, it's an apple tree. Go! Okay, it's 2-all. The decider. Okay, so John's sister is climbing the tree to try to steal an apple. Go! She's climbing the tree. Oh! Okay, so maybe I have to ask some questions. Who's this?
John.
What's he doing? He's reading a book. Where is he?
He's under the tree. He's under the tree.
I think this one's better, isn't it? This is under the tree.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's this?
John's under the tree.
She's very fat.
With long hair.
What's that?
What's the weather like?
Rainy. It's
Okay. So, thanks very much. Sit down. What about some of the other types of learning that are out there? Do you know these? Talk to your partner. Okay, this is obviously distance learning. Been around for ages. I'm sure you've all done courses where you had 1 week in the centre and then you had to do courses. E-learning? Electronic, via email or a Moodle-based personal learning platform. F-learning? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep.
Film learn.
I'll study English.
Free time. Yeah.
Maybe I'll go onto the CD-ROM. You decide how you learn. Yeah?
And when?
And when.
It's like online thing.
It could be.
Time-based.
Could be. Time-based. Learning. I'm not so sure about this, but learning is learning through Google. They're so convinced that they're search engine. M-learning?
Methodology. No.
These days, when you look at a CD-ROM in a workbook, it's always got MP3 files. So, you know, Pearson have all their books on e-text, so the students can put the course books on a tablet, and they can sort of do this. So, learning on the go. N-learning. Nano-learning suggests that the amount of information that you present the students should be no more than 2 minutes. So you present things in 2-minute chunks, and you imagine they're going to forget most of it. So you present 2 minutes, and then they can, using mobile learning or flexible learning, they can hear the 2 minutes again, and again, and again, until eventually they get it. I hope you all know what C-learning is. Because when your principal says, so what type of methodology do you use? Well, we do a bit of F learning. We do a bit of N learning. But generally I'm a C learner. Or I use C learning in my classes. Because C learning is conventional learning and it's what we do anyhow. Yeah, they had to give an acronym to it. Whenever during the lesson I use the gesture, the students will see how quickly they can remember. I'll show you what I mean. Again, we were using these things like bitterly disappointed. Can you all say that for me? Bitterly disappointed. And can you scratch your hair, please? Bitterly disappointed. Bitterly disappointed. Bitterly disappointed. Painfully obvious. Painfully obvious.
Bitterly disappointed. Painfully obvious.
Highly
suspicious.
Painfully obvious.
Painfully disappointed. Highly suspicious. Completely confused. Bitterly disappointed. Painfully obvious. Highly suspicious.
Now, that's normally enough but I'm just going to test you.
Fully occupied. Completely confused. Painfully obvious. Easily disappointed. Highly suspicious. Fully occupied. Easily disappointed. Highly suspicious. Completely confused. Greatly confused. Easily disappointed. Highly suspicious. Completely confused.
Okay, so once you've assigned it, you get on with your lesson, and then maybe after about 4 or 5 minutes, you just happen to do this. And some of the students remember. Or you happen to do this. Yeah, so you can recycle it very quickly without it interfering with the rest of your lesson. And the students will be exposed, even if they don't say it themselves, to completely confused about 50 times during a 55-minute lesson without worrying about doing other things. So at the end of the lesson, I didn't do 6 with them, I did 4, and they had the 4. No problems. With lower levels, I might do a word race, yeah, to recycle in general. 10 things that are green, 8 things that melt, 6 things that make a lot of noise, etc., etc. 4 things that you grow out of. Or I might...
Yogurt.
These are things you can eat or drink.
Marmalade.
Yogurt.
Eat or drink.
Yogurt.
I might just take the vowels away. Or I might decide to work on phonemes. What's special about this sentence?
So silent letter.
This one. What's special about that? Something special about it. I fear no boy may cure my cow. That's an example of every...
Tongue twister. No, this is idiom.
Oh. Not my. There.
It has kind of a rhyme. I think
Or just idiom.
like how so. It is rhyme. There is rhyme in it.
Pronunciation.
It's pronunciation. So you've got, for example, where is it? These are monophthongs. These are an example of all the diphthongs. Yeah? So, and again, if I've concentrated a little bit on pronunciation, is this a monophthong or a diphthong? It's a monophthong.
He is short.
So I might get them to divide the two into different types of vowel sounds, or, you know, this is long, this is short, and I'll say, okay, so which of these can you find the same sound? And it's not all of them, so they match the words with the sounds.
Different words and similar songs.
Exactly. Sometimes we need to actually break down text so it's easier for the students to understand. So I might take a text that's got clear paragraphs or clear parts. I'll imagine that a target reader has read one of those paragraphs and is commenting on it, is quoting on it. And I'll give the quotes to the students and see if they can find what parts of the text are being referred to. So here's a little bit of a text. It's not very big. It's about the market. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The market is like
Yeah.
market.
So I find if I've got a limited amount of time, sometimes with the book, there's a huge reading text. And if I want to do the reading text in the class, it takes too long. And if I ask the students to read it for homework, some do, some don't. Normally the ones that really need to don't do it. So I find it's better to work with shorter parts and then I can concentrate on reading skills in a shorter stage of the lesson, and we can still be doing something on reading rather than trying to understand the whole text. So maybe I just work with a paragraph, like this, rather than the whole text. And I'll say, look, I've got 4 quotes. Can you find the bit in the text that refers to the quote? Yeah, so that refers to that bit. Okay, so again, I'm simplifying the text, but I'm still getting to them to look for reference in the text. So they're beginning to confirm, they're beginning to predict, they're beginning to sample, they're beginning to do all of the things that I mentioned on the previous slide. Now, this will be designed for students who aren't very good at doing this. Yeah? It's quite easy, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, I can still do the same thing, but with more advanced students to test how well they're doing. This time, I've taken 2 paragraphs. And I've got more, I've got 5 quotes. Can you find which part, which paragraph, and it's a little harder this time because it's designed for higher levels, although it's the same text. Can you find the bits that these refer to? Very quickly work with your partners. First of all, you need to decide, is it talking about this paragraph or this paragraph?
That was C goes to the fourth paragraph, yes, and
E goes to the second paragraph.
G goes to the
First one, D goes to the
Okay. So that's A.
A.
No future, won't be here next year. That's B. That's C. That's D.
And E is
Yeah. So again, you notice by making the quotes a little less specific, you can make it more demanding for the students. And again, you can do those reading skills with not the whole text, but just a little bit of it, and which is more manageable in 55 minutes, I find. Substitution. Again, what they find with testing is obviously if they have a reading text and the questions use the same words that appear in the text, the students don't have any problems. But if they start using different words, suddenly there's a problem and the students find it very difficult to answer the question. So there can't be anything easier than substitution. You take any text, you choose some words from the text, and you write some substitutes on the board. Yeah? So I'll just show you, it's easier. So this is the text. It's only part of a text. It's only a paragraph. Here are some words. I'm only going to give you a minute. See if you can find words. I mean, obviously half an hour is 30 minutes. Yeah? Can you find the others very quickly? Okay, easier.
Easier is more convenient.
More convenient, yeah.
Choice?
Choice best option. Variety. Variety is alternative. For me personally,
Alternative.
variety. Variety.
Sufficient?
Enough.
All right.
Stores, markets.
Supermarkets, for example. So something like substitution is the easiest thing in the world. You can give this group paragraph 1. They have to think of 5 different words or phrases that can replace. This group has paragraph 2. Once they've got the words, you just get them to swap the words. Can you find? And again, it gets them looking at that type of text and analysing it. And you don't have to work with the whole text. So it makes it more manageable. And again, I think prediction activities are quite useful because sometimes the students don't understand 100% of the words. They have to make guesses. This comes from Language Leader. This is the unit on health, medicine. We've got 3 sentences here with nonsense words. What do you think the nonsense words could mean?
Injuries.
Minor injuries, that's a good collocation. Hospital would work, wouldn't it? Records, medical records is a collocation. Yeah. And you might get them to look at compounds and say, can you work out what the compounds mean? Or you might point out that there are some false friends. Yeah? And that you have to be careful. I mean, I come from the Czech Republic, and obviously this means road. Nothing to do with communication. Well, not directly. Yes, yeah, in Italian. So again, you give them a reading skill that transcends one reading text and that can be used with several texts. So again, in the teacher's books, it says, keep on using these strategies. Get them to do it every time. If you want them to talk about reading and guessing and predicting, and also grammar and writing, you need to think very much about grammar words, structural words. Here's something I do with my students that I find is very effective to help them with these types of exercises where they have to do word transformations or sentence transformations, or they have to look at translating even in some tests. I'll explain to the students that I use a language sometimes called Venusian. And Venusian is exactly the same grammar as English. It's exactly the same grammar, but the structural words are the same, the content words are different. So in English, we'd say the bottle is on the table. But in Venusian, we'd say the splurg is on the dobble. Yeah? And of course, splurg and dobble are Venusian, but the grammar words are the same, and the word order is the same, and the tenses are the same. So I'd explain Venusian, and I give the students a couple of sentences. I might say the splurg is on the dobble, and they wouldn't necessarily say the bottle is on the table, but they could say the pen is on the floor, or the cat is on the bed. And that's okay. So there are lots of different correct answers for this, as long as they follow the same pattern. And I'll just demonstrate this. So here's my Venusian. Here's a sentence. Can you give me a possible translation into English for that sentence? Any ideas? Any possibilities? Well, hold on a second. John. Let's have a look at John. Are we happy with John? In her? Joan, maybe. Yeah? So Jane or Joan, but not John, I don't think.
He's clever than my other.
Okay, great. The important thing is, you're going to have a comparative form. Maybe it's not, maybe it's this sentence. Maybe it's this sentence. Maybe it's this sentence. It doesn't matter what sentence it is, as long as they're using a comparative form, okay? Now, let's imagine they've used the first sentence. For example, you then give them a second sentence. And you say, if this was your first sentence, can you write the first sentence again, but this time use this structure? Okay. So you then have, the student has created a reciprocal pair of sentences based on your Venusian. Okay? Now they've worked on their own doing that. And then I'll say, translate that into Georgian. Translate those two sentences into Georgian. And they'll give those two translations to their partner. Their partner will then have to translate it back into English. And we know that some of the biggest problems that the students struggle with are things like, the grammar words. In prepositions tend to be avoided. So if we've already provided the grammar words for the students, then it's easier for them to self-check. Obviously, meanwhile, their partner has two different sentences, yeah, which practice a different thing. Obviously, here we've got reported speech, yeah, and we've got lend and borrow, for example. So the same process is given, and I think it works really well to to actually get the students focusing on the structure and the grammar, and it's quite easy to do. Because we're going to move on to writing quickly. Obviously there are two types of writing, product and process writing. Product writing is very linear, very direct. Process writing is non-linear. It's not any writing that is improving writing. It's only, so for example, a workbook exercise where you have to complete the sentences, that's not really improving writing skills. But if someone gives me a written essay or a paragraph, and I say I'd like you to put these 3 adverbs in, actually, well, surprisingly, that's very product orientated, but improves writing skills. Yeah? And of course, process writing is recursive. You know, we've got various stages, and we go round until we've got to finish, you know, so that the students plan, or the students write down a rough version, or the students, you know, check. And now, I find the planning stage is a little different now to 20-odd years ago when I started teaching. 20-odd years ago when I started teaching, students seem to have more ideas. They seem to be more creative. Now when it's so easy to find ideas, it's a little difficult to motivate them to come up with them. So you might decide to use something like cubing. Cubing is an approach where you give them direct questions to brainstorm and plan. Cubing is called cubing, it's developed by Cowan and Cowan, because there's 6 ways of looking at something. So here is a typical cubing set of questions. You know? And so if you were going to talk about language, you'd ask the students to describe it, or to compare it, or to associate it, or to analyze it, or to apply it, or to argue for or against it. And because you're asking them direct questions, you're going to generate more in the brainstorming stage. Yeah? Than just think of some ideas connected to the environment. My problem with writing, and again, here we see a connection of product and process with language leader. A ranking exercise to brainstorm, an example of the text that you want them to create, getting them to check the information in the text, getting them to find linkers or words in the text, getting them to choose the correct words in the text. And again, then they can write, they can look in the workbook and see an example of the type of thing they want to write. And again, they can look for linkers. You know my problem with writing? My students never do it. I say, I'd like you to write this essay for homework. Or, you know, I teach motivated adult students. I teach a lot of teachers. There's one guy, Peter, I'm very happy, he's like you. He's one of the few male teachers that comes to my classes. And Peter said to me, you know, Phil, I could really use some writing practice. I said, Peter, no problems. Here's some writing assignments. I gave them to him in September. Here's 3. Choose which ones you want to do. October, I said, Peter, how's the writing going? You know, I hadn't received anything. He said, oh, I'm sorry, Phil. I'm very busy at the moment. I asked him in November, you know, you said write it. Oh, yeah, I know. I haven't asked him since, but I haven't received anything. So, I think it's important that we get something from the students. And I do something I call fast writing. And I'm going to do it with you now. So, fast writing, because I need to generate some writing in my class. And I can't just say to them in a lesson, write an essay, I'm going to drink coffee, because I feel a bit bad about that. So I only want it to take about 15 minutes of the class time maximum. So I'll write some words on the board. Now, maybe I'll write some articles, because students have problems with articles. Or I'll write some prepositions, because again, students tend to avoid prepositions because they're not sure how to use them. I'll write some linkers on the board, maybe some conjunctions, those sorts of things. My students never write enough adverbs. So I'll write a couple of adverbs in there as well, maybe.
Use of phrases.
Some modals, because they don't use those as well. Okay, so I've got some words on the board. Give me a different topic.
I'm always very
Music.
particular about.
Well, sport. I'll take sport. Sport. Right.
Oh.
So let's say you've been doing a lesson on sport. It's about 30 minutes. It's the second lesson. You got 25 minutes left, or even for 40 minutes. You got 15 minutes left. So all right, you write these on there. You say, okay, you're going to work in groups, in pairs, or in groups of 3, and we're going to have a little competition. You're going to think of a sport, any sport you like, and I'm going to get you to try and win some points. You're going to try and score more points than anyone else in the class. Now it's very easy. Every time you use one of these words correctly,
Yes.
you score a point. Anytime you use one of these words incorrectly, you lose a point. Should you not use any of these, your score will be 0. Yeah? Now, what I want you to do first, and it's very important you do this first stage, is I want you to just practice speaking, not writing, but speaking with your partner, and see how many points you can score together. I'm going to give you a limited amount of time to write on your own, individually, and I'm going to show you the pass rate. The pass rate is 5. If you fail to use 5 of these words correctly, you failed the writing. My question is, did you pass?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
How long were you writing? How long did I give you to write?
5.
No,
No,
3
minutes.
20.
3 minutes.
No.
3 minutes.
Less than a minute? Less than 2 minutes?
Less than 2 minutes. Now, obviously, I would give the students longer, and I give the students longer to prepare. And of course, I do an awful lot of peer-to-peer correction, so that the students would look. They can't see their own errors, but they can see the other students' errors. Yeah, and they can spot those. So automatically, by doing a little bit of fast writing, I can generate some student writing in a class, and I can do some writing work in the class in a realistic amount of time. So I often do those types of things. I'm going to finish with one speaking activity, because we've only got about very little time left. So one of the speaking activities that I think is quite important is if you're dealing with a unilingual class, then any type of speaking is going to be a little bit artificial, because why aren't they speaking Georgian together? So I might get them to have a prompt. It's easier to give them something than nothing. So I'm going to give them 10 verbs. No, you don't have to write it down.
Yes.
Okay. So, I want you to think with your partner about a story.
Using this word?
A story. So you're using these, it's an anecdote. So what type of tense are you going to use? Past, obviously. Past. Yeah. Now, you have to use these verbs in this order. Okay? In this order. You can use other verbs, no problems. But in this order, you have to use those verbs.
Individually?
No, it's a speaking activity. It's a speaking activity.
Writing one, yeah?
Sorry?
If necessary, can be done as a writing one. Nice idea.
And stop. Obviously, I give the students longer. They practice it. Then I get the students to work in lines or circles, yeah? Because I want to recycle quite quickly. And I get one student to tell the story to the other student. And of course, the story might be, I went to a shop, I saw a new computer, I bought the computer, someone hit me and stole my computer. I caught him, but he dropped the computer, it broke, so I bought another computer, and my wife cried, and she went to bed. So, in some ways, my story is very similar to your story, because of course we've been quite restricted with the verbs.
Yes.
I've given them a skeleton, a framework.
Okay.
Yes.
They've talked in pairs. And then I say, actually, let's try and use some basic adverbs. Actually, surprisingly, luckily. And I'd write some words on the board. Next time, try and include some of these. Maybe some discourse markers. First, one day, then, after that. Yes? Finally. Yeah? Then I might say to the students, right, we don't have a conversation with one person speaking and the other just listening. Interrupt. I went shopping. When did you go shopping? Where did you go shopping? So I get the second one. And so I'm building up a speaking activity from a simple framework. And I keep on adding to it. And of course, we know with task-based learning, if you give them good feedback and you get them to repeat the task or a similar task using the feedback, they always say more fluently in less time, so they can see the progress very quickly too. So that's something I use quite often for speaking. So we've done a little bit of methodology today. We've looked a little bit at reading, we looked a little bit at writing, we looked a lot at Lexis, we looked a little bit at speaking. Hopefully you got some ideas that you can put into class. Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me to come. Good. All right. So have lunch, go home, enjoy the rest of the weekend.
ნიუტონის თავისუფალ სკოლაში ტარდება ტრენინგები ინგლისურ ენაში, რომლის ორგანიზატორია ინგლისური წიგნი საქართველოში. დიდ მადლობას მოვახსენებ დღევანდელ ტრენინგის მონაწილეებს და ვფიქრობ, რომ ესეთი ტრენინგები აუცილებელია ნებისმიერი სკოლისთვის. დიდი მადლობა ამისთვის.